Hey, sixth graders. We begin the crossover today, and here's how this is going to work. So I'm going to be reading live in class, but those of you who are watching this video, you're going to be reading with me doing the video. Here's how we're going to do this. I need you to follow along, and part of that is because when we read, if we want to get better, you have to watch the words and you have to see me and listen to me read them. If you decide just to go like text on your phone while you listen to the book, you're missing the element of reading. You need to have your brain lock into the words and follow along. That connection, that's how we build fluency. If you don't see the words when I read them, you don't actually learn how to say words. You don't learn how to pronounce words. You don't know how to like put words together, because when you see them, it's another layer. So I need you to follow along. So don't just go do your own thing, walk around and, watch TV while you listen to the book. If you're doing that, waste of your time. You're just literally throwing away an opportunity to get better at something. You're just doing something. You're not learning. So that's my requirement. I'm going to stop a little bit here, just so that you can point out some things, but mostly we'll read. All right, so here we go. This is the book. I'm not going to read from the book. I'm going to read from the PDF so you can see it. So right here is where I'm going to read from. Okay, so here we go. These are all the acknowledgments. These are all the chapters. Each chapter essentially really is a poem. It's going to look different than your average book. Okay, here we go. Warm up. So it's kind of broken up into sections. He organizes this book in terms of like a basketball game. There's warm up, then there's first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. That's how he sort of sets it up. Okay, here we go. Dribbling. At the top of the key, I'm moving and grooving, popping and rocking. Why you bumping? Why you locking? Man, take this thumping. Be careful though, cause now I'm crunking, crisscrossing, flossing, flipping, and my dipping will leave you slipping on the floor while I swoop into the finish with a fierce finger roll straight in the hole. Swoosh. Okay. Josh Bell is my name, but Filthy McNasty is my claim to fame. Folks call me that because my game's acclaimed. So downright dirty, it'll put you to shame. My hair is long, my height's tall. See, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. Remember the greats, my dad likes to gloat. I balled with Magic and the GOAT. But tricks are for kids, I reply. Don't need your pets, my game's so fly. Mom says, your dad's old school, like an old Chevette. You're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. Your game's so sweet, it's crepe Suzette. Each time you play, it's all net. If anyone else called me fresh and sweet, I'd burn mad as a flame. But I know she's only talking about my game. See, when I play ball, I'm on fire. When I shoot, I inspire. The hoop's for sale, and I'm the buyer. All right, I'm going to time out right there because I want to talk about a couple of things. Here's the deal. That writers in their craft, they're always pulling from their experiences. So I'm stopping here because this is a really great one, because I bet you a lot of you missed a lot here. Let me point out. So this second poem, let's just look at it stanza by stanza. So technically, actually, this is how this goes. Josh Bell. So the title actually is weirdly in the poem, but that's not unusual. So Josh Bell is my name. Okay, nothing big there. That's his name. But Filthy McNasty is my claim to fame. Okay, don't need anything there. Folks call me that because my game's acclaimed. Now, here's the thing. You may not know what acclaimed means. That might be important. So you might take a moment and look that up. So downright dirty, it'll put you to shame. My hair is long, my height's tall. See, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because if you know basketball, you know these names. If you don't watch basketball or the NBA, then you don't know this reference. So part of your job as a reader is to decide what you're going to go look into. Let me give an example. So acclaimed, I know that word. I've had that word in my life for a long time. It means to like be enthusiastically praised, right? It's like, hey, if I'm acclaimed, then people are like, that Mr. Slaby's the best, okay? That's what acclaimed means. If you don't know it, then you should take the effort and go find its meaning. Here's another one. If you don't watch basketball, then you don't know Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul, but here's who they are. This is Chris Paul, right? He's played for a few teams, but he's a point guard. Then you have Kevin Durant, who's a forward. He's like 6'10", 6'11", arguably as good as LeBron James, who's also known as the King. But Kevin Durant has less titles than him, but these are 1-2 in the league right here in terms of talent. So if you don't know basketball, then you don't know what these guys look like, what they do, what their game looks like. But if you do, then this line, Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul, makes total sense. Here's another one, second stanza. All right. Remember the greats, my dad likes to gloat. I balled with Magic and the GOAT. But tricks are for kids, I reply. Don't need your pets, my game's so fly. So here's the thing. Again, first of all, here's what's really interesting if you think about it. The way this is written, the dad, his like speech is in italics, so it's written differently. But this right here is interesting. I balled with Magic and the GOAT. Now again, those are very specific people. It's not a real GOAT. If you know who the GOAT is, then you know who this was talking about. If you know who Magic is, then you know who that is referencing. And lastly, this tricks are for kids. You may not know this, but that phrase is very famous, depending on whether you understand breakfast cereal. Let me show you what I mean. All right. So next slide. Okay. This is where we pick up like this other information. So Magic and the GOAT. This is Magic Johnson. So anytime you talk about basketball and you say Magic, it's Magic Johnson. There is the Orlando Magic, but that's not what he's talking about. There's only one Magic Johnson. The GOAT, that stands for the greatest of all time, and that is always Michael Jordan. Always. And if there's a documentary on Netflix that you could sit there and watch there's 10 episodes, hour each, 10 hours of learning about Michael Jordan. I grew up worshiping him because he just defied gravity. Like when you watch him, it doesn't look like he looks like he flies. And shoes are a big deal in his world. So that's another reference that Kwame Alexander knows, but you may not, and you might have to do a little digging. Here's one more. Tricks are for kids. If you like breakfast cereal, especially sugary breakfast cereal, then you know this Trix rabbit always gets in trouble in the commercials, and he tries to steal these Trix, the cereal, and these kids always come up and they say, "Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids." So that phrase, "tricks are for kids," is a direct reference to something in Kwame Alexander's childhood. Same thing in mine. I understand that. You may not. And so you're going to miss stuff unless you question. And it's okay if you don't catch everything, but you should be curious. All right, last stanza that I'm going to talk about is this. So mom says, your dad's old school, like an old Chevette. You're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. Your game's so sweet, it's crepe Suzette. Each time you play, it's all net. Now, here's the thing, right? Sorry, I made some mistakes here. The thing about this is the crepe Suzette, red Corvette, old Chevette, these are all things I understand, but you may not, and you might have to do a little digging. And guess what? The internet is so easy, you can. So here's an example, right? Old Chevette, look at that garbage car. That is a piece of junk car. It is not cool. It never was cool. It's not sporty. Your dad's old school. So the mom is saying, like, your dad, he's all busted up, right? He's old. He's over the hill. He's an old crappy car. You're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. Now that's a red Corvette, but there's a double meaning here. You guys are from Minnesota. If you don't know, Red Corvette is one of Prince's most famous songs. Little Red Corvette. Look it up. It's a really famous song. So that red Corvette is not only talking about like a souped up sports car, which you may not know, but it's also referencing a song by Prince. That's some really cool work done by the author. And that's important to note. And you got to look that up. You got to do research on that. Last one. Your game's so sweet. It's a crepe Suzette. I have never eaten crepe Suzette, but I have had crepes. So I can kind of guess what it is, and they're really kind of hard to make because you need to be gentle, but they're amazing, especially with Nutella. So, like, I know this is painful because you're like, Mr. Slavy, shut up. Can we get to the book? But the problem is, if you don't read the book like this, you're going to miss so much stuff. Bottom line, if you don't stop and read like this, you're just going to blow right past it. And I bet you some of you who have already read this book, you missed all this. That's what makes reading so cool, is that it's like a mystery. It's an escape room, and there's stuff here all over the place. So that's your work for today. So I'm going to read a couple more, but I am going to do this. Your second assignment from today's work is after reading from the crossover. So after reading in today, sorry, I got to do this right. If you get to that point where I'm going to read a few more, what is one question about a word or a phrase that you still have? What would you like to know more about? Think about a reference to something that you just aren't sure about in the writing, like Red Corvette or Tricks Are for Kids. So here's my examples. I want you to write a second post in your discussion that's like, I wasn't sure about the goat in the third stanza of the Josh Bell poem. Or, so who or what is the goat? I wasn't quite sure about the phrase Tricks Are for Kids in stanza number 2, and I'm wondering where that comes from. I wasn't sure what Alexander meant by crepe Suzette, for I've never had a crepe. I don't know what it is. Or I was confused by the word acclaimed in the first stanza of the Josh Bell poem, and what does it mean? Do you guys know what I did there? I made compound sentences. I'm sneaky. There's a comma, there's a comma, there's a comma, and these are so and, for, and. Ha, ha! Just combined the first lesson into the second. So I want you to write a compound sentence that is one thing today that you noted. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to reading for a little bit longer. Okay, I know I know I stopped, and I know that this was painful, but we gotta do this. So make sure you follow through. Okay, here we go. Back to the story. How I got my nickname. I'm not that big on jazz music, but Dad is. One day we were listening to a CD of a musician named Horace Silver, and Dad says, Josh, this cat is the real deal. Listen to that piano, fast and free, just like you and JB on the court. It's okay, I guess, Dad. Okay, did you say okay? Boy, you better recognize greatness when you hear it. Horace Silver is one of the hippest. If you shoot half as good as he jams, Dad, no one says hippest anymore. Well, they ought to, because this cat is so hip, when he sits down, he's still standing, he says. Real funny, Dad. You know what, Josh? What, Dad? I'm dedicating this next song to you. What's the next song? Only the best song, the funkiest song on Silver's Paris Blues album, Filthy McNasty. Notice this poem doesn't rhyme. Change pattern. All right, at first. I didn't like the name because so many kids made fun of me on the school bus, at lunch, in the bathroom. Even Mom had jokes. It fits you perfectly, Josh, she said. You never clean your closet, and that bed of yours is always filled with cookie crumbs and candy wrappers. It's just plain nasty, son. But as I got older and started getting game, the name took on a new meaning. And even though I wasn't into all that jazz, every time I'd score, rebound, or steal a ball, Dad would jump up smiling and screaming, That's my boy out there. Keep it funky, Filthy. And that made me feel real good about my nickname. Filthy McNasty is a mythical man-child of rather dubious distinction, always agitating, combinating, and elevating his game. He dribbles, fakes, then takes a rock to the glass fast and on the blast. But watch out when he shoots, or you'll get schooled, fooled, uncooled. Because when Filthy gets hot, he has a slammerific shot. It's dunkalicious classy, supersonic sassy, and down, right in your face, McNasty. Jordan Bell. My twin brother is a baller. The only thing he loves more than basketball is betting. If it's 90 degrees outside and the sky is cloudless, he will bet you that it's going to rain. It's annoying, sometimes funny. Jordan insists that everyone calls him JB. His favorite player is Michael Jordan, but he doesn't want people to think he's sweating him, even though he is. Evidence. He has one pair of Air Jordan sneakers for every month of the year, including Air Jordan 1 Low Barack Obama limited editions, which he never wears. Plus, he has MJ sheets, pillowcases, slippers, socks, underwear, notebooks, pencils, cups, hats, wristbands, and sunglasses. With the $50 he won from a bet he and Dad made over whether the Krispy Kreme hot sign was on, it wasn't. He purchased a Michael Jordan toothbrush, only used once, on eBay. He's right. He's not sweating him. He's stalking him. All right, just to keep it light, we'll stop there for today, just so you can start processing. Again, your work right now is I want you to go back and I want you to like add to your work from the first assignment, and I want you to just ask one question about what I just read. Okay? There you go.